It was probably one of the most embarrassing and heartbreaking moments of my life.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Bad Times, Good Stories podcast. My name is Joe Flanders. I hope that you are just having the best goddamn week ever. I'm having a good one. I'm really excited to share with you the conversation I had with my uncle, Chris Biersack. I imagine most of you that watch or listen to the show know me through Average Joe or The Andy Show or any of the things that I've done with my cousin Andy Biersack, the lead singer of the rock band Black Veil Brides, and the solo career that is Andy Black. If that's not how you stumbled onto this fine program, then I highly suggest you check it out. Check him out, check Average Joe out, check out the stuff we do. But Chris is Andy's dad and my uncle, and I've been wanting to have him on for a while, and given that I was back in Ohio, it seemed like a perfect time. So we talk about a variety of things, Chris and I. We talk about the worst breakup he ever experienced. It's a pretty royal fuck you that he was given, as we discuss. We also talk about a weird priest situation that he encountered as a kid growing up in the 70s. It's nothing too traumatic. It's just a weird thing that led to a conversation about what people thought of priests then and now. So that's kind of an interesting conversation that Chris brought up. He just watched the Michael Jackson documentary, and yeah, that was interesting. And then last, we talk about Chris's experience going on the first nationwide Black Veil Brides tour when... boy, these are humble beginnings. Chris was basically doing everything. He was the manager, the tour manager, all the positions that aren't coming to mind right now. But he was basically doing everything, and he talks about that, which sort of climaxed with him driving through a blizzard in Texas and nearly dying. So, as I tell him, I'm glad he's here to tell the story, but more importantly, I'm glad he's here because he's family, and I love him, and I really appreciate him coming on. So, I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, give us the goddamn 5 stars. We're so close to 50. We got 48 reviews, I think, right now. So, give us the 5 stars on iTunes. I'd really appreciate it. It would mean a lot. So, if you're a long-time listener or first-time listener, just go ahead and support the show. Please. Thank you. You can also check out badtimesgoodstoriespod.com for past episodes, merch, and a link to the Patreon page to support the show financially, if that is an option for you. Lastly, you can email me at badtimesgoodstoriespodcast@gmail.com, and maybe I'll read your bad time good story on the air. Real quick, I did want to mention I did shoot this in Ohio when I didn't have my full array of sound equipment. So I think it sounds good. I think it's solid. But please forgive if it's not quite up to the excellent standards that I've created with this podcast. And if it really bothers you, this is a free show. Get off my back. That's all I've got for now. So without further ado, here's my conversation with my uncle, Chris Biersack. How's it going?
Good, man. It's great to have you back in town.
I know. It's been nice to be back.
I've been listening to your podcasts, the Bad Times, Good Stories podcast, and of course all of the Andy Show podcasts. So I feel like I at least have a regular weekly connection with you, but it's good
definitely.
to have you here in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
The weather's not too bad, and
I'm happy to be here.
and we're having whatever the fuck these are.
Yeah.
Bottom shelf
Maple
liquor. Yes.
So if you're watching, you're just going to see my face get more and more red as I...
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. The Flanders curse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. One of many Flanders curses.
Yes. There's a number of them. It's a good family, though.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That is true. So we've got this is one of my more favorite types of episodes where we're going a couple different directions today.
Oh yeah, yeah. This could be interesting, upsetting, confusing.
All of them. All the yings.
I've had a lot of bad times.
Yeah, which is why I thought
But hopefully they lead to
good
good stories. Exactly.
So my challenge will be, now I only know the bullet points, so my challenge will be trying to find, you can grade me as it goes, these segues from one to the next.
Okay, good.
I pride myself on my fantastic segues.
Why wouldn't
that
you?
no one else thinks are fantastic.
Right.
The self-appointed fantastic segues.
Do you want me to grade you as it goes?
Sure,
Like literally
yeah.
yell out,
Yeah.
that was a good one?
Yeah.
All right, I'll try to
Or
do that.
bad.
All right.
And then I can, we can do a mulligan.
learn on the-
Try again.
Are you going to edit those out or
Maybe not.
just leave it all?
I've gotten to a very freeing point with this podcast, Chris.
Okay.
First, I guess we're going to start with some good old. Now, I was going to say heartbreak. I don't know if it goes that far.
At the time, it was probably one of the most embarrassing and heartbreaking moments of my life. But in retrospect, after I tell the story, and I've told it many times, it's now kind of funny.
Good.
Especially 30-something years into my marriage.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not like...
It would be a problem.
I mean, as it turned out, it wound up being a tremendously good thing for me.
Yes.
But at the time, at that exact moment, it was probably the most embarrassing thing. And I would say one of the most well put together fuck yous that I've ever experienced.
Well, I love a good, well orchestrated fuck you.
It was.
So.
It was. It was. I mean, it was juvenile, but it was definitely well orchestrated. As you'll hear.
Well, great. So this was in college, right, in Cincinnati? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, when I was a freshman in college, I went to the University of Cincinnati, and my girlfriend at the time went to Xavier University, which is like a smaller Jesuit school here in Cincinnati. I actually wound up getting a master's degree from there years later, but at the time, I was going to a big state school, UC, 40-some thousand students. I was at the College Conservatory of Music. That's where I majored. And so my friend group and the people that I knew and the people that I was kind of becoming familiar with was like this big, wide group of different people from all different cultures and experiences and everything else. It was really cool. And then my girlfriend was going to Xavier, and it was pretty much the same kids that we all went to went to school with in high school.
Oh,
because she went to the girls' parochial school, a high school, and I went to what they call the brother she was the sister school of ours. I went to a parochial high school, and so that's kind of where we met each other.
Okay, all right. So now it's freshman year. Is this the same girl? Were you dating her in high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Very, very serious. I'll just say it. My first love. First girl that I kind of fell for and that I loved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was not the best boyfriend in the world, though.
Why is that?
I was in bands.
I
was a lead singer of rock bands, and that's kind of they don't necessarily go hand in hand
with a healthy relationship.
With a healthy relationship, no. So
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I wasn't the best boyfriend. I tried. I mean, probably, in my heart I was.
Yeah.
But as a teenage boy, and even in my early years of college, I probably wasn't the most faithful of boyfriends.
I got it.
So I just set that up to let people know in advance.
Yeah.
That.
And did she bust you on this?
Ultimately, she did, Joe. Because when I tell this story,
sure,
you're gonna find out.
All right,
she did.
Maybe I buried the lead there.
That's all right.
Okay, all right. So how long had you been together?
We started dating probably around my senior year of high school.
Okay.
Very early in the senior year of high school.
Okay.
And wound up together for. Maybe it was my junior year, but regardless, it was 2 or 3 years by this point.
Okay, and at that point, as a first love, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's a huge portion of your life.
Right, yeah.
When you're 17, 18, or 19 years old, whatever it was up until that time, that's a sixth of your life.
Right, yeah.
6 of my life is a long time now. I hate to say it, but it's definitely a long time.
Okay, all right. So she's hanging out with all the high school crowd. You're hanging out with a diverse bunch of probably more interesting people.
Yeah,
probably,
I mean, you know, I'm in the theater department at the College Conservatory of Music, so I'm around people that are completely different to what I was used to at the high school that I went to here in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So things are going along. So overall, things are pretty good.
Yeah. Well, you know, she knew I was in the bands, and so she would come to see me play. In the bands that I was in, different bars and clubs around town. But you know, it's hard to be a girlfriend of a guy in a band when other girls would literally walk up to you during your set and stick their phone number in your pocket.
Yeah, that's
one time we were playing a show in at the what was called the Islands, which was a restaurant bar on the Ohio River, floating restaurant.
Oh, wow.
And a girl tackled me and during the set, and we both fell into a swimming pool. So she was there for that. So it wasn't easy. I'm not, you know, it's just it was a weird set of circumstances, but you know, we still stayed together. The only thing about her family, which was kind of weird, was that her family was incredibly conservative and incredibly Catholic.
Okay.
I mean, you know what Catholic is because you grew up in it, and you know what incredibly Catholic is because our grandparents, remained that way through your life. But these people were like beyond Catholic. Okay.
Sure.
And in other words, they probably had some pictures of the Pope, at least 2 of them in the house.
Okay.
And they didn't like me.
Sure.
I had
a rock and roll guy.
Right, I was a rock and roll guy. I had, all the accoutrements that went with that. I had some tattoos. I had long, like a cross earring, like Andy wears. Sure. I had my hair was either bleached, kind of in a Billy Idol style, or it was black. You know, I mean, think of Andy.
Right.
At that age, and it's similar. Let's just put it that way.
I buy that.
But she was a really nice girl, and she, like I said, she was the first girl that I really connected with on that level. So we stayed together despite her being so different from me. She was cool. I liked her, but her parents and her family, particularly her mom and dad, were very conservative.
So does that mean obviously I would imagine no sex till marriage or anything like that. That's what they wanted, the parents?
I guess.
And they saw you as the complete opposite of that. They're like, oh, I don't think this is going to work out.
If she was dating me.
Right, yeah.
if she was dating me and they saw the way I looked, I mean, I'll give them that.
Sure.
In retrospect, I'll give them that. If that's your mindset, if you're not looking at what's inside somebody's heart, and you're just looking at the outward appearance, I was not the ideal boyfriend for any young girl who was at a parochial girls' high school.
Yeah.
I was the guy who, if you were looking to piss your parents off, you would bring me home.
You could have started a business doing that.
Right, yeah. That was me.
Okay, all right. So now it's what, sophomore year of college?
Yeah, sophomore year of college.
Okay.
And we're still off again, on again, but I'm trying to reconnect.
Yeah.
This is right before I went into a fraternity in college, which is something that you have to understand I never would have contemplated doing. But I was trying to show her that, despite all my other things that I do, that I can also be a part of that world.
Right. Yeah.
Okay?
You can play the college game.
Right.
Yeah.
So early in the fall of my sophomore year, I go to her school and I go to a choral performance. Okay. It was like whatever you want to call them. I'm trying not to use the name of the school. Let's just call them the Muskie Singers.
Sure.
Okay, let's just call them that.
Muskie Singers.
Yes, and I go to the performance, and I'm going to really make a concerted effort because we're getting older.
Yeah.
And I want her to see me in a different light from what she's always seen me in. So we go to this performance, and I am dressed up nicely, as in I'm wearing a suit, which was very rare in those days. Probably a leisure suit, whatever. I don't remember, but think of Miami Vice.
Sure. Yeah.
That was
The Don Johnson look.
Right. I probably had shoes with no socks on or something like that. Trying really hard to look like Don Johnson. But anyway, I went to the choral thing, and I brought roses with me. I brought flowers. I don't remember the specific reason why it was. It could have been close to the time that we started dating, because this was in the fall. I believe when we first started dating, we were in a production of a play together at the Herp School, a musical, and so that's when we kind of connected and started dating. So it might have been about an anniversary type of thing. It could have been. I can't recall.
Sure.
But I do know that I brought the roses with me, and I sat through this whole performance. And then, like you do, after the end of a show, quite often you will wait for the person that you came to see.
Very customary.
And you want to congratulate them on doing a fantastic job and give them the roses.
Give them the blind. That was great.
Yes,
regardless
exactly.
of how it was.
Right, exactly.
I've received and given multiple of those.
I'm standing outside their dressing room.
Yeah.
And people are coming out and saying, "Are you Chris?"
Okay.
And I'm like, "Yeah." She's going to be, I won't use her name.
Yeah.
Let's just call her C. Yeah. C is going to be out here in a minute. She's been looking forward to you being here. And then I was like, wow, that's really cool. She's telling all her friends about me at school and everything. She's all excited and everybody knows. And then another one comes out.
Uh-huh.
And it's another friend, and she's like, "Oh yeah, C is in there, but she'll be out in just a little bit." And it's starting to get a little peculiar to me, but yet my ego is making me believe that she's so excited to see me that she's telling everybody about me being there.
Right.
So I'm standing there. It's probably about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Outside. And normally if your boyfriend or your girlfriend are inside and somebody finds out that you're out there, they come out right away.
Right. Yeah.
This is taking forever. And I'm standing there and these people are coming out. And I'm in this hallway. I'm standing there with my roses, like a freaking dork. And she comes out. But she doesn't come out by herself. She comes out with like almost the entire cast of this choral performance, all the people that were there.
Okay. All right.
And
they're going to serenade you with songs?
It's so bizarre. It's like, is she going to introduce me to every single one of these people? Because this is weird. And as it turns out, it was almost in my mind. Now, going back on it, maybe it wasn't this way, but in my mind, it was like all of a sudden the whole group like split in half.
Okay.
And then there was this guy standing next to her. And then they made an announcement that this is her new boyfriend.
What? What? Oh my God.
And so I'm standing there with like 20 people looking at me.
Yeah.
Trying to gauge my reaction of being dissed.
Yeah. What? What was your reaction?
Heartbreak.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I didn't, without sounding too sappy about it.
No.
It was, number one, it was embarrassing, clearly. But number two, it was like, wow, how bad have I been?
Right.
As a boyfriend,
Yeah.
that you would go through all the trouble of engaging 20 other people in telling them about this, to the point where they would all rally behind the idea of having this announcement. I didn't even know if this guy was actually her boyfriend, to be quite honest with you. It could have just been a setup.
Right.
And he agreed to go along with it. If he was her boyfriend, and as you'll find out later on, he actually was. But if he was her boyfriend, at the time I was thinking, what kind of a guy is going to go along with being the prop?
Exactly.
That another guy being embarrassed. Like it was set up for me to go. I don't know if they wanted me to cry. I didn't know
what's the reaction because I could see, like I was going to ask, like, did you throw the flowers? And like, like, were you angry?
I don't know.
But was it just like shock?
I don't even remember what I did with the flowers. I might have just taken them with me and I think I just walked out of there and just went to my car because I was just completely shocked by it.
Yeah.
It was a level of cruelty and an amount of pre-planning that went into it that to this day, I've never seen anything like it.
No, to be that and to make the presentation such that they literally parted the Red Sea and then they were there waiting for you.
Yeah, it was orchestrated and it was well orchestrated. I look back on it and I think and I said this earlier, if you wanted to prepare a fuck you, they did a hell of a job. I got to give them credit for that. I mean, as much as it hurts,
you got to tip your hat.
When you got to tip your hat to that one.
That's a level of fuckery that.
Yeah.
I mean. You got to.
Yeah. I mean, it's
so fucked up.
It borders on being a psychopath.
It really
borders
does.
On. Because you could just say to somebody, hey, I don't think we should see each other anymore. Or I don't think this is going along well. Or I'm not really, I don't want to continue on with you if you're, going to be the guy who flirts with girls at your shows so that they keep coming back to your shows.
Right.
I mean, that was one of the things you try to explain to people is that I have to be, if girls come to our shows, I can't be a dick.
Sure.
I can't be like, fuck you, get out of here. My girlfriend's over there.
Right.
That's not the way it works, particularly when you're in college and you're trying to be, get paid to be a house band and bring people coming back. Yeah. You want girls who come to the shows to be attracted enough to you, whether it be you or the other members of your band or whatever, that they want to come back.
Right. Yeah, if they're like, oh, fuck that guy, then they're not going to come back.
You don't have to act on it, but during the show, you have to treat them like they're valuable and important, and I appreciate you being here.
Right.
And so, I get that. I understand why somebody wouldn't like that.
Sure.
But the level of this was just incredible.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, if there was something like in a short amount of time leading up to this that like was really bad that happened, or something that she was like, I'm going to get back at him for.
No,
I mean, I can't imagine you would do anything that could top that or be in that realm. But yeah, that's why it doesn't make any sense. It's just like if there was that's wow. I don't know.
The irony of this was, to kind of wrap that story up, was that very shortly thereafter, it was when I met Amy, and I continued to sing in bands, and I continued to go to shows. I mean, do shows, and Amy would then be coming to my shows. Mm-hmm. But C would still keep coming to my shows with her friends. I don't know if she was doing it to unnerve Amy or she was. It was a weird set of circumstances because Amy would be there. It's a delicate balance. If you've ever been a front man or you ever been in a band that was popular with women, and you have your significant other or your girlfriend there, boyfriend if it's a girl who's the front person or whatever, it's a very difficult thing because they're kind of hypersensitive about women or men, if it's a female, like I said, a female front person, being overly aggressive and going after the singer. So you're trying so hard to keep people happy and wanting to come back to see you that you don't want to do anything as the front person to dissuade them, don't want to put them down or anything. But it's not like you're up there, grinding them or something in the middle of the show. You're just being nice to them. Sure. And if they give you their phone number in your pocket, you don't slap their wrist away.
Yeah.
You're
How dare you?
Right. It's just, it's, people that know how the customer, quote unquote, is always right. Right. At the time, that's what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
So
she would come to the show. Did she ever bring her boyfriend?
No.
It would always
just
be
her
the
girlfriends,
friend.
just friends. Yeah.
Okay.
And so eventually, Amy and I have been together for 3 years, and eventually she kept trying to keep in touch with me, contact with me, which is weird because after that you'd think she never would. Yeah, but you have to understand, I don't know if I would assume I was her first love. She was definitely mine.
Right.
And so we had that kind of a connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a connection. And I don't know if that whole thing, her anger with me at that point in time was so severe that it caused her to do that, whatever reason that she had.
Yeah.
I don't think it stopped her from being attracted to me.
Right.
I just think it was her way of saying,
okay,
screw you, I can do better. Here's this guy,
right,
who was a very good-looking dude. I'm not going to deny it.
Sure.
He was a good. I remember seeing it and thinking, damn, I think he did better than me, at least from a physical standpoint.
Was that kind of getting kicked while you were already down? You're like, oh, damn it.
I wish he would have been like some Frumposaurus or something, some really dorky dude or something. But the guy that she picked, which is why at the time, and she was a pretty girl, she still is to this day. But at the time, I remember thinking, is this a plant? Because this dude's too good looking for this. It's almost like you found the best looking dude. And,
right.
And it was her boyfriend, because the day before our wedding, we had all the
you and Amy.
Yeah. No, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
We didn't get married. It wasn't me and C. It was me and Amy.
Right.
She called my apartment, and I had my groomsmen and my best man there because we were about to go to rehearsal dinner.
Yeah.
And she was actually asking me if I was going to go through with it, because she knew the wedding, and she knew how are you going to do this, and it was a kind of a weird thing, because it felt weird to receive a call from somebody who was showing that lack of respect for another person, as in my future wife,
right,
to make that kind of a call.
And did she? I mean, it wouldn't have mattered even if it hadn't ended the way that it did. But between coming to the shows and now this. Does she not realize that she gave you the best royal fuck you could give? That's it. You can't just come back from that.
I don't know how you come back from that.
Yeah. I mean, it was great for what it was, but it's
I don't know how you come back from it.
Yeah, you don't.
I think she knew in her heart that no matter what she would do, I would still have feelings for her.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
That's a whole level of fucked up.
I think she knew that was the case. So, and then of course Amy and I got married, and we've been together for 35 years.
Yeah.
But we've been married for almost 32 years.
Yeah.
So, but about 5 or 6 years into Amy and I being together, as far as being married, I got a phone call from her. I think I was still living in an apartment complex with my wife. We just moved back here to Cincinnati. We were in Florida for a couple of years.
That's right. Yeah.
And I got a phone call from her, and I found out that she had a baby by the guy, which is the boyfriend, the handsome guy, and that she had a son, and that the son was I think the guy would I don't know if they ever got married or if he just left. He absconded. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, he was gone.
And she had a son, and her son, the way she was portraying it to me was that her son needed a male figure in his life, a father figure, whatever. I guess she wanted him involved in sports and things like those are the type of things that I was involved in. And at that point in time, Andy wasn't born yet. It hadn't been. Oh, okay. It wasn't for another year or two that Andy was born. Obviously, I was really involved in Alex,
right? I was going to say
all of Alex's sports and the things that he was doing.
Yeah.
Because of the age difference between Alex, your cousin, or my nephew, and Andy. Ultimately, I was able to do both.
Right.
Because when one was kind of done and was in high school and had his own coaches and everything else, then it came Andy's turn to do his thing. So I was able to do that, for both of them. But that was.
What what did you say when you got the call?
It was hard because I try to be a good person,
right? And
I don't want to, I don't really think that I think it was just kind of left open,
maybe,
yeah. Now, for what happened with her, and I don't want to get too much into that, but what happened with her is she wound up meeting a guy and got remarried and had daughters and had a great life, and she's very successful businesswoman here in Cincinnati and has done a wonderful job for herself, and And then I don't have any ill will towards her, really.
Sure.
This story is more about the level of how somebody could put together and orchestrate and pull off
Right.
such a grand fuck you.
Yes.
It was just
Yes. Yeah.
it was
I mean,
amazing.
that was probably at that time. That was probably one of her greatest accomplishments in life. She should have been. And from her vantage point, she was probably proud. I got all these people involved.
I look back on it and I like I said, it's a hat tipper. I tip
Yeah.
the cap
Yeah,
for that because it was so well done.
Well, I've got a few questions on this, and then we can move on. But
Right.
do you remember like the facial expressions of all that were involved? Like, or were you just zoned in on her? Because I'm curious. Like, are they looking at are they psychotic and looking at you like, is it gonna break?
Yeah.
Like what? Like
And they were. It was a glee. Wow. It was laughter. It was. There was no embarrassment. At least I didn't feel it. I didn't feel like any of them were embarrassed by it. It was like a gang of people who were so thrilled that they were pulling this off, and they wanted. Like I was to them at that time. I guess I didn't know any of them. To them at that time, I didn't know what story she had told about
Right,
me.
that's what I was gonna
I had
say,
no idea.
yeah.
I had no idea what the background for that she had given them about me. So as far as I knew, she had told them I was the worst person ever, and that this whole thing made perfect sense to them.
right. Yeah.
I knew that it didn't,
right.
and that it wasn't.
But from their
But from their
point, maybe.
vantage point, it might have. So they held nothing back.
Right.
And so that kind of added
I
to
bet.
the embarrassment of it all.
So did you say
Stand there.
anything? Do you remember?
I think I just put my head down and walked away. I really do. I don't think I got.
Yeah. Like, what do you say?
I'm not. You know me. I'm inclined to respond. I'm inclined to fight. I
Yeah.
think that how brokenhearted I was
Yeah.
about that whole situation. One of the few times in my life where I didn't have a response.
That's rare. Yeah.
You
For you.
You know me.
I do.
And people that are listening to this podcast that know of me know that I'm inclined to respond
Yeah.
to things.
What'd you do the rest of the day?
I don't really remember.
I'm sure you blocked it out.
I was in a fraternity at that point in time, so I probably went back to the fraternity house and drank and
a lot of drinking. Yeah.
smoked pot.
Sure.
I did a
Yeah.
lot of that in those days. So.
Sure. That would be an appropriate response.
Right. That
To
was
getting your heart ripped out.
Right.
In front of spectators.
I really don't remember.
Sure,
I just
yeah.
remember that moment as one of those moments in my life that I'll never forget.
Yeah. Now, how long did it take you to bounce back?
Oh, I met Amy, I believe, the next year.
Okay.
And in the interim, I went out with girls, and
Yeah.
I wasn't
that thing.
at
Kind of
UC. Yeah. I started
fun.
going out. I started going to. I could dance because I was a theater major in school, and I could go to clubs and dance. And
Sure.
aside from singing in bands, which was, I didn't have let's just put it this way, I had a lot of options. It wasn't like I was wanting for female attention. Yeah. I was fortunate in that way that I was able to do that, and so.
Okay.
It wasn't until the next year though that I met Amy, and then things completely changed for me as far as the way I perceived what real love is.
Right.
I didn't really know it was kid love up to the point with her, with C, and ultimately I found out that love is not just about attraction.
Right.
It's about a relationship based upon trust, and a relationship based upon wanting to do more for the other person than what you want to do for yourself.
Exactly. No, and that's a really interesting distinction because, I mean, as I've talked about, there was my first love who broke my heart, who was never into me in the first place.
That sucks.
But when I met Karina, it was what you were saying. It was something else. It was like, oh, this isn't like, I'm not just like, it's not a smitten thing. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Well, the other party is so giving.
Yeah, well.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing, is that I can't imagine anybody in my life who loves me more than Amy does.
Right.
And so that's such a wonderful feeling.
Right.
and I feel the same way about her.
Right.
And and when you're a kid, you only know what you know.
Right.
At that time, for lack of a better term, and all I knew at that time was I was attracted to a person, but we weren't on the same level as far as our interests.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she wasn't a rocker. Now, Amy's not a rocker either,
Right.
obviously. But Amy was interested in music, and she loved sports, and she loves to watch football. And there's a variety of things that we connect on a more equal level than I did with this other young lady.
So the last question on that would be, was there a moment when you realized that it was something more with Amy?
I knew it right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew it right away. I met her at the University of Cincinnati at the McDonald's. This is a true story. I met her at the McDonald's at UC. She was working at the campus McDonald's. She was wearing the old school uniforms that they used to have, which were really attractive. I just can't tell you that right now.
Sure, very flattering.
Right, very flattering. Total. What do they used to wear? I don't want to say nylon. They were polyester.
Polyester. Yeah,
Total polyester uniform.
Yeah.
And number one, I thought, man, she's attractive, and she's wearing that. Okay.
Yeah.
So long story short, I'm in line there at the McDonald's. It's the McDonald's UC campus. You imagine at Ohio State UC,
Sure, yeah.
you could be in line there for a good 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's
drunk
so
people
many,
or whatever.
right. And there's bars, little bars all over the place at the University Center and everything else.
Right.
People in between classes. And so I would wait in this big, long line to get up to the front, and then I saw her. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, yeah, I want to meet this girl. Mm-hmm. So I got out of my line and went to the back of the line where she was waiting on people.
Oh, wow.
And then I got up there, and then that's how I met her. I ordered whatever I ordered. I don't remember, but I do remember that I had just gotten paid from the bar the night before
for a gig or something.
For a gig,
Yeah.
and so I had hundreds in my wallet, hundreds and fifties.
Okay, looking like a big shot.
So, which we joke about the fact I haven't had many of those since then. I had more hundreds and more 50s in my wallet when I was a 20-something-year-old college student than I did when I was, now as a grown-up.
Right.
But, as a government employee, as a government servant, as your dad knows,
right.
You don't walk around a lot of 50s and hundreds.
No,
so
no.
those are already spent.
So did you go from that specific interaction did you ask her out then? Like,
Yeah, I
while she was
did.
in line?
I did. I actually.
Respect.
No, I think I did. I don't think I did it the first day. I think I talked to her and I tried to charm her.
Yeah.
The brief amount of time that we had.
Sure, yeah.
And then I went back another day. The line was a little shorter or whatever, and I talked to her and I asked her out, and she wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that still I looked a little different.
Sure,
and I had streaked hair and a big earring, and I'd be honest with you, I was probably wearing I was in musical theater, so I was probably wearing like what we used to call leg warmers,
Right. Like
and
black,
a dance, and I probably had like tights on with a dance belt, and which was underneath. Dance belt is something, if you don't know what this is, but a dance belt is something you're supposed to wear as a dancer that hides the package.
Bulge.
The bulge, yeah. And so when I first started at CCM, I didn't know anything about that stuff. So I would wear a pair of sweatpants and a jock strap, and you could see pretty much everything because I went from a parochial school. I wasn't the kind of kid who went to a performing arts high school.
Right.
I didn't go to a school that even had a play until my senior year.
Right. Yeah. So
I
you were-
literally went from never being in a play and people in my school saying, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I think I want to go into be an actor, or I want to, get into be a singer."
Right.
And them saying, "Well, what makes you think you'd be any good at that?" Which is ironic. The counselor is supposed to not dissuade you from something that you're interested in, but that was the way it was back in the day. And so I auditioned for that and got into the College Conservatory of Music, which is the second-rated school performing arts college in the country next to Juilliard.
Yeah.
And so that was probably a big shock. Not a shock to my parents, apparently, because they didn't consider that to be much of anything. Nor did they attend my auditions where everybody else's parents were there.
Yeah.
Right? But that was in the days before the helicopter parents.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
it was a completely different time.
Right. and I think we could move into a completely different time. You teed that up for me, and you're good for it.
Thanks,
Let's
man.
call that out. The assist there was phenomenal.
Thank you.
So
Thank
let's go
you.
to a different time where people weren't maybe aware, kids maybe weren't aware of creepers, weirdos,
Yeah.
stalkers, and molesters as they are now.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when we were. I don't know if you've seen the documentary
I haven't. I just
Leaving
can't
Neverland,
bring myself.
the Michael Jackson documentary. But we were watching that show, and I think pretty much the majority of people that watch that, their first reaction is, how were these parents unable to see this type of thing, and why weren't they more upset about it?
Right.
And it kind of brought me back to, because I'm a kid of that time period, the late 70s to early 80s, when all of this was going on, and it reminded me of a experience that I had with a priest and a teacher at the parochial high school that I went to. My brother, his friends, me, my friends. I knew a lot of people that had this experience, if you will, with this priest.
I will.
And you will. I know you will. Well, let's just call him Father Flat Top.
Father Flat Top.
And and it was one of those situations where, at that time in life, you could tell this story that I'm going to tell you, and people that you would tell it to would not bat an eye.
Okay.
But when I tell you this story in 2019, or I tell it to anybody who is of this age, who's grown up in an area where they are aware of things such as pedophilia, and they're aware of, like you said, creepers and all those other kind of things, that they hear this story and they can't believe it. So, this let me say, I had a teacher in high school, a very jovial guy, big, heavy-set dude, flat top haircut, was a priest, and he would like to go to Sharon Woods or one of the local parks with his students. It was all boys school.
Okay.
And you just hike around.
Right.
Okay. And he would ask you civics questions, because that's what he taught. And if you got the answer right, if you got the answer wrong, let's put it this way. If you got the answer wrong, you had to do X amount of push-ups.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
If you got the answer right, though, you got riding time.
Okay.
And riding time was you got to ride on his shoulders. Big, heavy set dude. Okay. So you would ride on his shoulders, and he would ride you around, and he would encourage you to kick him like a horse. And he would say, if you kicked him and he would run around, he'd say, "Oh, you're brutal." So, it was funny. High school kids, you would tell
high schoolers?
Yeah, we were high schoolers. Yeah.
Okay.
We were high
Okay.
schoolers.
All right.
And so, you're
weird,
probably
but-
you're probably 15, 16 years old.
All right.
All right. I know it sounds weird.
It's weird. But
Okay.
it's not
All right,
crazy yet.
Okay. So my brother and his friends would do it. We would all come back into our house and tell my mom and dad about this.
Oh, I got a ride on Father Flat Top.
Father Flat Top would give us a ride. We'd have riding time. And then it kind of turned into, you could ride him. He would get on all fours, and you could ride him, and then he'd he'd take his belt off, and he'd stick it through his teeth. And then you would steer him around while he was riding you around, and he would say, "Oh, you're vicious. Oh, you're vicious." And you'd be literally riding right up around his neck area, right by the flat top.
Yeah.
And he would just ride you all over the place, and that was, I probably did that, and I would actually had friends who I knew from other schools who would come to these hikes, and we would all do this.
Like you're 8 years old, ride around on some adult's back?
Sometimes you just do it by yourself, and you'd go with them, and sometimes you would sometimes you would go with other kids, other boys.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it wasn't just me. It was my brother. It was most of his friends. It was me. Now, okay, that's my point, is that when in 1979, 80, 81, all the rest of that,
Right.
I guess it was about 1980. Well, let's just use that as the date. I didn't know anything about that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know about pedophilia. I didn't understand the creepiness aspect of it.
Yeah, oblivious.
And my parents apparently didn't know about it either. priests were held in such high regard
Sure.
back
yeah.
in those days.
Right,
Now it's
right.
different because we've had the whole priest scandal and
Right.
people talking about priests diddling kids and all the rest of that
Right.
stuff. But back in those days, that wasn't a thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so even if you told that story to your parents, their reaction was, oh, Father Flat Top, he is such a funny guy.
What a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where I look back on it and then I watch that documentary and I think to myself, how outraged we are right now about those
Right.
parents, and how could they not understand that this is not right for a 35-year-old man
Right.
to be hanging out with kids all the time, and these
Yeah.
kids are staying at his house and yada yada yada. And I'm not trying to make an excuse for that, because fame in that particular set of circumstances what drove those people to overlook the things that were going on.
Yeah, it
It's
blinded them. It blinded
right.
them.
That's my opinion on that. But I think that most people that watch that would come up with that. But it wasn't the same mentality that people have now.
Sure.
So to sit on somebody's high horse and judge those parents,
Right.
and how ignorant they were, if people say that, or how could they do that? You're basing it upon today's theories and philosophies on how to raise your children,
Right.
as opposed to in the 70s and the 80s. Your dad could tell you this, your mom could tell you that oftentimes when we were kids in the 70s and the 80s, we were just left alone.
Sure. Yeah.
There was no helicopter parent.
Right.
There was nobody hovering over to make sure that you were okay. There was more kids when I was in school who died from driving accidents and DUIs than you'll ever see in an entire 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
This was every year. Then you'll
Right.
see an entire 4 years at any high
Right.
school here.
Yeah.
Or in Cincinnati now. It doesn't happen now because we're much more guarded about things than we used to be back in the 70s and 80s. I used to leave my house as a young teen, or even before then, and be gone for an entire day in the summertime, and my parents would have no idea. My mom would have no idea where I was, and then my job was to get back by dinner.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is that, and I think I've talked about this before. I know I've talked about it with friends before, but at 31, I was at the tail end of what you're describing.
Yeah.
'Cause I think it was really cell phones that did it.
Yeah.
Because once parents had access,
Yeah, you have
to their
access.
kids,
Yeah, they didn't have access.
I would ride my bike. I would do the exact same thing you're saying. Mom would make me check in on a payphone once a day, and I was gone from 9 until sundown. Mm-hmm. And I was doing whatever I wanted. I would ride my bike around with friends and whatever. And so, I think yes, when I was growing up, there was more, but I still don't think it's like it is now.
Right.
Like in the mid 90s.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to excuse
No, I know
that situation. I was as shocked watching that documentary that a mom would sleep in a room with her son, who was 7 or 11 in the other kid's case, being in the very next room every single night, sleeping in the same bed as Michael Jackson. I look at that and think, how you really were blinded, like you said, by the level of fame and the things that you were able to do and all that. You were trying so hard to make sure that your kid got a career out of this through his connection to Michael Jackson, that you were, in your mind, you're willing to overlook the very real possibility that something weird was going on. I'm not trying to dismiss that. I'm just saying that for those of us who are looking at it in 2019, it was a different time, and it was a different mentality that people had. And the story that I gave you, while not as severe, is in my opinion, a good example of how something that was that out in the open and that multiple kids were involved with was seen in those days as absolutely nothing.
Right. Yeah. No questions asked.
No.
And honestly, it bothers me a little bit that story did elicit the reaction it did from me, because now I guess I should preface, did anything ever come out about this guy?
Not that I'm aware of, and I don't really know.
Okay.
The last time I saw him was at and one of Greg's friends had a wedding, and he was at that wedding. And
Okay.
I was older by then, and I was not inclined at
To
that
get a
point in
ride.
time to have a conversation with him, because I knew at that point in time in my life that what he was doing was creepy.
Yeah.
Because he would take his belt off and he would put it between
That's
his
what really
teeth,
did it. Yeah.
and he would ride around, and then he would, he wanted you to whip him or kick him.
That's really what did it for me.
You know what I'm saying? Like he was like,
he's getting off on
kick
that.
him on the side, or
That's
and I don't mean to be graphic here, but you're talking about teenage boys whose ball sacks are literally hanging on his neck.
Yeah.
It was just now that I look back on it, I'm kind of like weirded out by it. But what I'm more weirded out about on it was that I was, 16 years old or whatever, but that my parents completely no issue with it whatsoever.
Didn't bat an eye. Yeah.
No, because he was a priest.
Right. Yeah. And again,
And priests my mom, priests are the representation of God.
Right.
And if a priest came to your house when I was a kid, that was like a status symbol.
Yeah.
If you had priests coming in where I lived, the more priests you had coming to your house on the weekend, the more you could brag to your neighbors who were also Catholics.
Right. Yeah.
It was almost like collecting priests instead of collecting baseball cards. Look how many priests we had. We had priests. And the priests were smoking. They're getting drunk.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
They were at the house getting shit-faced, and they were smoking fatty cigars down in the basement and everything, playing pool. But hey, they're at our house, not your house.
A Father of God's playing pool.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess what I was starting to say is, and with the belt and it is weird, but I was going to say a little part of me, it does make me sad that it did elicit the reaction it did, because there's no room now for like maybe he just wanted kid. I'm having a hard time defending it with the belt and everything else, but you know what I mean?
I don't know. I'm not gonna say I do.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that at any of that was.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't.
I'm not gonna say that any of that was pedophilia. I don't know.
Right.
I'm gonna say that story and the way that was should have elicited some level of concern from your parents at that time.
And I guess
it didn't. And my point is that I'm trying to say maybe it's not necessarily my parents, because it was other people's parents as well, who had this situation going on. Mm-hmm. So when I watched that Leaving Neverland, it made me realize that how we're looking at something and what we're looking at it through today was not the lens that we were looking at it through in 1980.
Right. Yeah, and I guess the what I'm trying to say is that it's a shame, because of all the horrible stuff that has happened, that it even regardless of your situation, like now, if there's an adult who just likes spending time with children, instantly your guards, your flags are up.
Now they're really suspect. Right. Anybody,
even
and
if
that's unfortunate.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Is it's just like, but I think it's understandable that the guards instantly go up because of all the shit that's happened. So I guess some other shit happened on the first Black Veil Brides tour.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up with that. So I'll try to. Most people that know Andy know that in the formative years of his career, I took a fairly active role in most of the things that were going on. I served as his de facto manager. For the very first tour that he had, they didn't have a tour manager. Mm-hmm. So they booked like a dozen shows from this area to start all the way back to Los Angeles, where they were based. And so they needed somebody to do that. And so I agreed that I would take on that responsibility.
Yeah.
So I needed to get or hire a roadie.
Yeah, somebody to help.
And I found a guy online on MySpace who was saying that he had done this. He had done sound tech. He was a sound tech. He had done guitar tech. And I was thinking, okay, that'll be good. This guy knows what he's doing. I have no idea. Yeah. I've never done that kind of stuff. I'd always done the merch. I'd always done the staging type of things.
Yeah, setting stuff up.
Yeah. And and the lights or the smoke machine, the fog machine. I'd always done that kind of stuff for the shows.
And what
props? This thing. This was 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's the end of 2009. Black Veil's going to go on their very first tour. So I find this guy who I think I'm talking to, and he has a username that's similar to another guy.
Okay.
Who I contact by accident. And this other guy wants to do it, but it wasn't the guy
that I wanted.
Right. And I didn't know it.
Oh shit.
The
Okay.
guy I wanted, I never actually contacted. Because I didn't, it was the very beginning of social media.
Right. Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure. Like back in the day, just to let you know, in social media, I didn't understand that people would fake that they were Miley Cyrus.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't think that people
Or
would
that
do
they would do, right. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
so like, this is funny because Miley Cyrus used to always talk about Andy and how she was looking forward to his first record.
Oh wow, I didn't know.
And I thought that's not true.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In my mind.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, somebody
in my
pretending
mind,
to be...
somebody pretending that, and I was thinking, well, that's really nice of you. And I would send back like a nice thing saying, well, that's really, really good. And the funny part about it is that, as you know, Andy was offered a slot to do Miley Cyrus's Hannah Montana show in this relatively minor role, where he was supposedly going to play some edgy rocker dude, who was a huge fan of Miley Cyrus, to which Andy said, "No fucking rocker dude would be a fan of Hannah Montana."
Right. Yeah.
At the time. Now maybe.
Yeah.
Now
sure. She's now she's wrecking balls.
Right.
And
Yeah. Now she's she's a rocker to a certain extent herself. But in those days it was Hannah Montana. And Eddie was like, no rocker dude, high school or otherwise, would be a fan of Hannah Montana.
A Disney Channel
So he
star.
wound up not doing it, and as the rest is history. But that was this kind of the set of circumstances up to that point in time that we had. So social media was relatively new to me. I didn't know. So I said to this guy, we'll call him Vic.
Okay.
I said to Vic, okay, here's what we're going to do. He's from another city. He came from somewhere in Indiana. I want to say close to Evansville.
Yeah.
So he drove all the way here.
Okay.
At the time, I still was under the opinion that he was this other guy.
Right. Who has this experience.
Right, who has this experience. As it turns out, this guy Vic is just he's a wanna guy. He has a good heart.
Yeah.
He wants to do it. He doesn't know jack about it.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
I don't even really find this out until we're into it.
Yeah.
All right. So we go to the first show. It's in Cleveland, Ohio. And that's the infamous show where they booked Black Veil into the small room at the Peabody's in Cleveland, which no longer exists. But they had a house band because they were going to have a Cavs game, and they were going to have a band after the Cavs game because it was relatively close by to where the Gund Arena is, or whatever they call it, Quicken Loan. Yeah. And so this house band is like nobody's there.
Yeah.
And when we get to the venue, there are kids lined up around the front of the venue all the way to the back and into the alley.
Wow. And
when we drive up to load in, I'm thinking to myself, wow, I wonder who's playing tonight.
Right. Yeah.
And it turns out that everybody that was there to see this brand new band that didn't even have a record out called Black Veil Brides that had one video, Knives and Pens, which was a viral sensation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we get all set up. We're in there, and I've got all the merch. And there's no way I can do all of this. And this Vic guy doesn't necessarily know what he's doing, and it's taken forever to get them set up.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was a warm-up band. There might have been. I think there was a warm-up band that night. It was a local band or whatever.
Yeah.
Nice kids. I don't remember the name of the band, but there was a warm-up band that night. But I'm trying to get it all coordinated and organized. I'm trying to be the manager, the tour manager, the merch guy, and do pretty much everything.
Right.
And really, I'm just somebody's dad.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not that. I don't have that background or that history.
Right. Other than playing in a band.
Right.
At that point, 25 years?
I knew
20
enough.
years earlier?
I knew enough about it that I knew how to deal with bar owners. I knew how to collect money at the end of the night.
Right.
I knew who to go to. I knew who to ask for a position to put our merch and the best area to put it in and all the rest of that. But I didn't know enough about it to square away because I was a singer.
Right.
Singers aren't as aware of all of the specifics of a setup for a sound system and how things need to be set up for the guitars and everything else. Because for all intents and purposes, I'd walk up there, everybody else would have their shit set up, and then I'd sing.
Right. Yeah.
I hate to say it, but that was the
Well, yeah,
level
that's your job.
of ignorance that I had in the years that I did that. It was like, well, that's not my job. That's your job. And I was never in a band the size that Black Veil ever
Sure.
became. Everybody in the bands I was in, it was do it yourself. Everybody set up their own stuff. Everybody tore down their own stuff at the end of the night. Well, if you're singing through the house PA, my job was essentially to get my mic stand and my microphone
Right.
on and off the stage.
Right. That was it.
It's a relatively easy
Sure.
process.
Yeah.
So Vic's in there, and he's taking his sweet time. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And I've got the merch set up outside, and the place is packed. I mean, it only holds about 200, and they had to put people up in the rafters, and it was literally a fire. What do they call it? A fire trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
there was that many kids in there. And then they let all these other kids in the venue, and they couldn't get in, but they could hear the band. So they all stood in the hallway where the merch was. So we were all packed in there like sardines.
Yeah.
And there was probably about 400 kids in there in a room that would only hold 200. The rest of them were in there. They let them in for free because they didn't, and they were apologizing afterwards profusely. Blackville wound up playing there 3 or 4 more times. They wound up being really good guys. They would, even Andy, if he had an option between them and another venue because of how nice they were about that whole situation, he kind of had an affinity or a fondness for the people that ran that place because of the fact that it was the first thing. So
Right. But they just underestimated the draw.
Yeah,
of the
they
band,
underestimated the
'Cause
draw.
there's no album
Right.
out. Right. Okay, I get it.
So that's a great show, and band winds up afterwards signing autographs for 2 hours afterwards, but I literally couldn't keep up with the merch.
Yeah.
We sold out all of the merch that I had for the entire tour, for all 12 shows.
Wow.
That night. Like there was only 200 people in the venue. There was
And
400
all
people
of
in there,
them bought.
whatever.
Yeah.
But we sold $4,000 worth of merch that night. Okay. Now we didn't pocket $4,000 because we had to
Right.
pay for that.
Right.
All of that money came out of. But I had to call back home and get the guy who was doing all the merch for us.
Yeah.
And I had to have him do a rush order and send it to the next
place. Yeah. Like overnight it probably,
yeah,
right?
He had to
Yeah.
overnight it.
Yeah.
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 So, and also I had to recruit somebody at the venue
Mm-hmm.
in Cleveland to come with us for the rest of the tour to be the merch girl because I couldn't do it. It was
Right.
an impossibility. I already
Yeah.
realized I already had back problems at that time.
Right.
I started having severe back problems in 1995.
Right.
So
Yeah.
by 2009,
Yeah. It was noticeable.
10 years ago, I was having back problems.
Right.
I've had them for years. And I realized, oh my God, I think I've bitten off more than I can chew with this thing. I've got 11 more shows, and I'm going all the way to Anaheim as the final show at Chain Reaction, and I'm already worn out.
And that had to be a combination of really exciting for the fact that the band is doing what it is, but also terrifying because you're like, I can't do this myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the other thing was that, and I'll kind of get into that, but the other thing was that one of the primary things that I did not want the band to have to do is I did not want them to have to tear their own gear down.
Yeah.
I wanted immediately off the stage them to go directly to the merch table
Right.
and take pictures with fans
Mm-hmm.
and to encourage people to buy merch so that it could be signed.
Right.
That was my goal because that's how we were going to fund. We weren't getting paid a lot, whether it be at the door or a guarantee or anything like that. We weren't
Right.
getting paid a lot, but we could sell a lot of merch.
Right. And you're getting all that money, right? You're
And
not
if it
splitting
had
that.
Andy's face on it,
Right.
we could sell a lot of merch. That's what everybody knew the band to be. Nobody knew the other band members at the time. But at that point in time, the only thing people knew was Knives and Pens, and they knew Andy as an online MySpace kind
Right.
of celebrity kind of
Exactly.
guy who had been doing music here locally in Cincinnati. So if we could sell that, we'd be fine. But I couldn't do all that myself.
Yeah.
So I recruited this girl, Jessica, who happened to be a friend of the drummer at the time, Sandra Alvarenga.
Yeah.
Sandra Alva. And so she drops everything and comes on this tour with us because she lives in Pittsburgh, which happened to be the next stop on the tour. So
Okay,
we are able
okay.
to take her back with
Oh,
us.
so it actually worked out. Yeah.
Yes. Or I think she drove back. I'm not really sure.
Whatever,
She had a
yeah.
car there or whatever. And then the next show, I meet her mom, and I have to recruit her mom to let her join us on the tour. Like she has to meet me, It was this rando dude. He's asking my daughter to come on this rock and roll
like
tour.
we were just talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, what the hell is this?
Rock and roll tour, and you're going to take care of my daughter and everything else.
Who the hell is this guy?
Right.
Right.
So I had a recruiter to come along for the rest of the tour, and she did, and it was fantastic. But 3 or 4 shows into the whole thing, our boy Vic decides that he's homesick. And he didn't want to do it anymore.
Now, I was going to ask, what was the moment you realized you'd made a terrible mistake with who this Vic was in this process?
I don't even know that I realized it until I got back from the whole
Oh, really?
thing.
Okay.
I really don't.
You thought he just talked a big game
It
and
did not
failed.
make any sense to me that this guy, right. I assumed that this guy was the guy that I had initially wanted.
Right.
And he was a sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah.
He was a try-hard. Mm-hmm. He wanted to do a good job. He just didn't know what the hell he was doing.
And that's a problem. Yeah.
And so And so he decides that he's going to catch a bus back to Evansville, Indiana, or wherever he was from.
Yeah.
And so now I'm the roadie. I'm the merch guy. But I've got this Jessica to help me with the merch, which is good.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm also the guy who's going to be on stage with them doing the lights.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be, because Vic's not there anymore.
Right.
And, which by the way, the band liked a lot more, as it turned out, because Vic didn't know the songs.
Right.
It's hard to be the light guy.
Yeah, if you don't know the song.
If you don't know the songs.
Right.
Because the lights are syncopated to the beat of the song or whatever. I knew every word of every song.
Sure.
Better probably to a certain extent than some of the band members did. Because these were Andy's songs and had been for years, a lot of them that he had when he was here in Cincinnati with the band. There were songs that they never played after that tour that were actually Blackville Bride songs from the Cincinnati days. So I was able. That wasn't a problem.
Sure.
So we go through the whole tour, and there's highs and lows. There's sellout shows in certain cities. We had to play a show in Flagstaff in a snowstorm, and there was probably about 15 people there.
Sure. Yeah.
But then the next day, I wanted to skip the Flagstaff thing. I was, Andy and those guys, give them credit, because my advice to them was, why the hell are we going there? We got LA and a whiskey the day after.
Yeah.
Why are we going to drive all night long and be exhausted to go and play the biggest show of your fledgling career at the whiskey? Why are we going to Flagstaff? And the response that I got, which says a lot about Andy, was, well, we've got a responsibility. We've got we've made a commitment. We should be there. Mm-hmm. So we drove in the snow and all that. Hardly anybody there. And the only concession that we made was we played first, even though they were the headliner, if you will.
So you can get
we
on the
played
road
first so we could get on the road and get out of there quicker. We drove all through the night. I was the only one driving my car. They all switched. Mm-hmm. They had 4 people in their car. 5.
Yeah.
And so they would take turns driving.
Mm-hmm. You were on your own, though.
I was on my own, and I would have Jessica with me.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, I would have Sandra and Jessica with me. Mm-hmm. But I had all of the merch, big things of merch, and all of the suitcases.
Right.
And they would have, the rest of them would be in Ashley Purdy's Durango, and they would have they had the trailer.
Right.
Andy was not a good driver. I'm just going to tell you that. In the early days, I don't know if he's a much better driver. He's a good driver now.
Right.
But back in the day, as a young 18, 19-year-old kid, 18 years old at that time, not a good driver.
Sure.
Because I would see the trailer.
You could see who was driving. You knew.
Right, I knew at the time when the trailer would be like, whoa, and I would be behind it.
Yeah.
But it was tough because, I didn't have, that was in the days that it could have literally been any type of ingredients in those stupid one shots or whatever those things were
5 hour energy.
5 hour energy drinks. Yeah. They could have had anything in there.
Oh,
could have been battery acid. and I needed to stay up because I had to drive all night long.
Right.
Well, they could switch off and on.
Right.
I
Take
couldn't.
naps. Yeah, you were on your own.
So I was, as of, what am I, 55 now? So I was 45 at the time. I was not a young man. I wasn't a spry chicken, if you will.
Sure, I will.
I know you will. So we get to L.A. They played at the Whiskey, and they sold the whiskey out on a Tuesday night, 2 nights before Christmas.
Yeah.
Which was unheard of.
Yeah.
Well, they said that the last time the guy told me that was working there said the last band that sold it out the first time that they played there was Motley Crue.
Wow. Okay.
And so
in good company.
Yeah, so that was really cool
Yeah.
to hear that. But the irony was that they didn't have enough people to work it.
Because they weren't anticipating.
They didn't anticipate. They didn't know who the fuck Black Veil Brides was. And they didn't realize that there was a following.
Right.
And they didn't have a record out. I can't really blame them.
No, of course.
But they came to us. We were in a dressing room. Blasco was there, and the dressing room at the Whiskey. The guy came in and he goes, "I wish you guys would have told us how big you are. We'd have had more people here."
Yeah.
And I remember 18-year-old Andy saying, "Yeah, how would that conversation have gone?
Yeah.
Just wanted you to know we're pretty big shit."
Yeah, we're kind of a big deal. Yeah.
So.
And they would have said, "Yeah, all right,
sure
whatever. Where's your record?" Yeah.
So the place was packed. The warm up bands didn't know who they were. Yeah. The warm up bands in most of these places, I got to be honest with you, during the first tour, the warm up bands would see the way Black Veil looked,
right,
and they would be making fun of them.
Right.
Oh my God, they couldn't believe it, and nobody was in their court.
Right.
I mean, nobody was like a fan of them, and bands would stand to the side and they would be joking about it, and they'd think it was, oh my God, what the fuck is this about?
Yeah.
Until they would hit the stage.
Right.
And then the fans would just be going nuts
from
the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then they played the Chain Reaction the next night, sold that out. We were told that Avenge didn't sell it out. Now, having all fairness to Avenge, it was a fucking great band. They were from Anaheim. And they're from Orange County.
Yeah.
So the first time they played Chain, they'd probably played a zillion other shows around
the area,
and so it wasn't that big a deal.
But this was the first time Black Veil was.
But the first time that they played, so the tour ended really strong.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
You know, you're talking about your first LA show sold out, Chain sold out in Anaheim the very next night, and then I'm going to go back because I want to go back to Cincinnati for Christmas. It was just around Christmas time.
Yeah.
So I stayed an extra day there. I stayed actually at Jinx's apartment, because Andy was living in that shithole that he used to live in, and he didn't want me to be there, and I wasn't really excited about being there either. And, you know, he encouraged me to stay someplace else. So I stayed at Jinx's place with a bunch of snakes and spiders and everything else that he had there. Jinx was quite a collector of weird animals and everything else. I think he had like a lot of candles that were shaped as skulls, if I remember correctly. He's a sweetheart of a guy, but you know, he's a rocker. He's got a different way. They call him Mr. Creepy for not
endearingly.
Endearingly, yes. Yeah, for a reason.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drive back to Cincinnati, and I'm like, you know what? I think I can. I know it's a two-day drive, but I think I can be home in time for Christmas.
Yeah, I remember this because I was in Cincinnati.
You were in Cincinnati. And so I'm driving home, and I'm driving from LA. You're not thinking about snowstorms when you're starting in the West,
right,
and you're moving to the Midwest. You're not thinking about, I'm going to get in the middle of a snowstorm.
No.
But I'm not really familiar with what's going on in places like New Mexico and Texas and places that I got to drive, Oklahoma.
Right.
I got to drive through. So I get past New Mexico. I think this is the route. And
on 40 maybe?
Yeah, I get into Texas. And I'm near Amarillo, Texas.
The Panhandle.
The Panhandle.
Yep, I know that.
And I hit this unbelievable blizzard that you can't see a foot in front of your car.
Oh, God.
And it was so bad. Now, it started snowing the night before, but I was used to driving in snow.
Sure.
Midwest.
Yeah.
Midwest, particularly. I was from Milwaukee, so it wasn't like I would ever think of not driving just because it was snowing.
No.
But this is something I'd never seen before because there are no trees on either side of the highway.
Yeah.
It's like in the Midwest, our highways have borders essentially.
Right.
We have like giant fencing sometimes. We have concrete walls.
Right.
We have big like forests of trees and everything else. They literally, you could see the other side of their highway, and there's nothing next to that either.
Right.
So when the snow and the wind and everything are just whipping, it creates this whiteout where you can't see anything. So all of a sudden, I'm like, holy shit, I'm on a freaking roller coaster ride right now where I'm not going to see the bottom of it.
Right.
And I could hit my brakes, and I didn't know what was going on. And I hit an ice patch, I slide off the side of the road, and now I'm in an embankment where I'm looking at the highway, and now I can see all kinds of other cars sliding off the road. It's just one after another.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not just me, it's one after another.
Yeah.
And probably about half an hour, 45 minutes into it, EMTs are starting to come. They're getting out of their cars. They've closed the highway down.
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to close the highway down.
Right.
And they are walking out on the highway, and they're falling, walking. These guys in the EMTs are just like there's an ice skating rink. It was really bad. And I can see all of this happening, and they're looking at me, and I'm thinking, okay, somebody's going to help me here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of here with my car, but they're going to help me. It's a dangerous situation because cars are sliding off, and they're like next to you, or there's another car sliding off, and it's coming this way, and you're just wondering, when is this real game of bumper cars going to have a fatal end to
That's
it?
what I was going to say. You're just sitting in your car waiting for somebody to
and you're
ram
watching
right
cars
into you.
sliding off while you're
yeah.
sitting there looking at it. And all of a sudden, this tractor trailer, what we used to call an 18-wheeler, comes, and it jackknives, and the cab, the front end, turns sideways.
Okay.
And now the driver, his window, side window, is literally looking right at me, and I'm looking at him. And his trailer is whipping around.
Yeah.
Right. And he and I are looking at each other, and I know at that exact moment, I am going to get crushed.
Yeah.
This is going to hit me, and there's nothing either one of us can do about it.
Sure.
And so it comes whipping around. He hits me. My car goes back. Luckily, my car goes back about 20 feet because it's all ice.
Right. So you just slide right across.
I slide.
Yeah.
If I had been stuck in mud,
that's the end,
grass even,
Yeah.
I might have died.
So it hit you from the front and then pushed you back? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Pushed
true.
me all the way back. But now I'm behind this. I am completely hidden now.
Yeah.
There is nobody can see me.
Right.
Because I am hidden by the entire trailer.
Yeah.
My car is pretty much demolished. I am bleeding.
Yeah.
I have different wounds in different places, my face and legs and everything else. And I don't know what to do. So I'm calling back to the house in Cincinnati, and I'm trying to get them to get somebody out there. And they're like, yeah, we've called, and they said that they're heading out there. And 30 minutes goes by after that, 40 minutes, an hour, ultimately 2 hours. And we're still on the phone, and I'm wondering if the phone's even going to short out. I just had one of those little Motorola flip phones in those days.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they got enough people out of there. I was one of the last people that they got out of there. It was like 3 hours. And they brought a helicopter in, and I helicoptered out of there. They took me to a local hospital in Amarillo. And, I had this whole bad experience. It's a terrible experience, and I was kind of in shock, to be honest with you.
You got to be, yeah.
And so I get to the hospital, and police officers came in to see me, to talk to me about this.
Okay.
And these cops were insinuating that I may have started the accident in a blizzard.
What?
And then they were asking me questions about, we found in your car Vicodin or muscle relaxers because of my back or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were like, so were you intoxicated when this happened?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, dude, was 50 other people intoxicated when this happened?
Yeah.
Everybody slid off the road.
Right. Because there's a blizzard.
And no, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I have medication that I take with me. I didn't take it.
Yeah, I was going to take it at the hotel or whatever.
To drive.
Yeah.
And so I got interrogated
Oh my God.
in the hospital by cops after all this happened.
Wow.
Yeah, then they drove me, these cops drove me to a hotel. And that was the next day I scheduled a flight. Amy helped me get a flight. I flew back. Of course, my flight was delayed by 2 or 3 hours because that's a guarantee. And then I wound up getting back Christmas Eve, late on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
When people came to the airport. And I think you guys might have come to get me on that
Yeah,
night. but I was home in time for what we like to call the birth miss.
Right. Yeah.
So that the birth
That's
miss
all that
is
matters.
Andy's birthday.
Right.
So as
On the
you know, we most of us celebrate that
Yes.
probably even more so than we do
Yes.
the Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize you were interrogated. I didn't realize that I didn't even realize you got hit. Were you trying, when you were calling back, were you trying to put on a bit of a brave face just to not worry everybody?
I think I was just in
Or you were
shock.
just shocked? Yeah.
I think I
would
really was
imagine.
just in shock. I mean,
Yeah.
I was, first of all, I was happy if that word is applicable. I was happy that I wasn't dead because I saw the guy's face and the level of terror that was in his face as he was approaching me in the truck,
Yeah.
and the fact that he hit me and that I wasn't dead,
Yeah.
and then I went. I mean, it was sheer luck that it was ice.
Right.
And it wouldn't happen if it wasn't ice to start with.
The whole thing wouldn't have happened.
But the irony was that ice was what allowed me, after the fact, to walk away from that thing.
Right.
Because if I would have been stationary, as in hit me, it would have just ripped through the car.
Right. Yeah. Because
It hit it and caused irreparable damage to the car, but it didn't rip through the car and just. The odds were that if it would have done that, I would have been
totally smashed.
with it. Yeah.
Wow.
The
Do you
things
remember
the things we do for our kids?
Now that's a takeaway. Yeah. Do you remember? Did you have like the life flash before your eyes thing, or was it just like, oh fuck, this is the end?
I didn't have the life. I don't think there was enough time, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. I didn't have.
I feel like that's probably a movie.
I didn't
thing.
have that. I just remember thinking this entire time I've been praying to God that no car hits me.
Right. Much less.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
I kept
yeah.
thinking at a car because they were just sliding off the road left
Right.
and right, and you're like a sitting duck at that point in time, and you're thinking
waiting.
somebody's going to hit me.
Right.
Somebody's going to hit me, and I just remember thinking, oh, it wasn't a car.
Yeah. Well, he answered my prayers.
Right.
It wasn't a car.
Right. It
Yeah.
wasn't a car. It was the worst possible. Yeah. A big one. Big 18-wheeler, man. One of those bad boys that had, it had almost, well, I guess it had two separate.
Yeah. Looking like
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like a 36-wheeler.
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Wow.
It was huge. And it obscured anybody's view of me from that point. Nobody could see me. And I was just praying that you guys back here could touch base with the right people and explain what happened so somebody could find me. Because my car, I wasn't going to be able to keep it running forever and a day.
Right. Yeah.
It didn't stop running, ironically. So I didn't lose my heat.
That's key. Yeah.
And if you would have walked outside, when I did walk outside eventually, it was one of the most brutal colds I'd ever faced in my entire life because the heat or the wind was blowing so hard and the snow was pelting your face like somebody was, just throwing icicles at your head.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. So
Now, was that the last tour you did with Blackville?
no, I did.
Was that the end of your managing career?
I did a tour with them. I did Warped Tour with them in 2011.
Oh, okay. Well, they were a
Or
little more-
2013. I'm sorry, 2013. I did Warped Tour with them in 2013.
Yeah.
But I didn't do the whole tour.
The circumstances were a little different.
And
then,
I was on a bus,
It was the summer.
and it was the summer, and my primary job was to sell merch,
Yeah.
which I did. I would be at the merch thing, and I would, and then I also did a lot of video during that tour.
Sure.
Where I talked to fans, I videotaped them talking about the band. And all those videos are still up on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. Anybody can check them out. Where during that portion of that I was on the Warped Tour, I met with and talked to fans. The fans in those days were a lot younger
Right.
than they are now.
Right.
The fans of Black Veil obviously they've grown up with the band, and in particular, Andy's fans, who with Andy Black are it's a more mature group, I guess you could say.
Sure. Yeah.
So. It's I'd like to do that in the future, to interview his fans at a Warped Tour scene or something along those lines, and see the difference between the kind of people that are in the kind of the age group the kids. But I kind of know it because I talk to people on social media all the time.
Right.
And I know that the fan base is much older. The whole premise, that whole easy trope that people like to roll out about preteens and teens and all the, it's not correct.
Right.
You can say that if you like, if that's easy, if it makes it easy for you,
right.
or if it makes it something that fits the narrative that you want, that Andy is for preteens. But if you go to a show, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
There's dudes there. There's all kinds of people of different ages.
Yeah.
There's people that like rock and roll. For Andy Black, there's a lot of people who appreciate that 80s alternative
pop type.
Yeah. They love, bands like Duran Duran and
right.
Spandau Ballet and Depeche Mode and, bands that we used to see on MTV back in the day when I was a kid and were on there routinely.
Right.
Adam Ant, Billy Idol. That was the core. People that like that stuff are very interested in what Andy's doing with with the Andy Black thing.
Right. Well, I'm glad you're here to tell the story.
Thank you. So am I. I made it 10 more years.
Yeah.
I'd have missed out on a lot if I hadn't made it past then. I'd have seen Andy's very first tour, and that'd have been it.
That would have been it. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. I'm glad I could text you and
you're a good man,
make it
Joe.
happen.
I'll tell you that.
I learned from the best.
Thank you. I am his favorite uncle.
It's true. It's true.
That was the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Chris for coming on. It was great seeing him, and I hope you got some chuckles out of that conversation. If you enjoyed it, give us that 5 stars. Just do it. Just do it. That's all I've got for this week. Thank you for watching or listening, and until next Wednesday, keep laughing.